As an artist, Nzewi has participated in major artist residencies and workshops and has exhibited internationally and is represented in public and private collections, including the Smithsonian Museum of African Art in Washington, D.C. In 2017, he was recognized by Apollo, the international art magazine, as among the 40 under 40 influential thinkers on the global art scene.
I often make the case that one of the things going for the Nigerian art scene is its strong tradition of entrepreneurship. And so when you talk about Nnenna Ugochukwu as being this sort of figure, not only as a pioneer modernist, but as someone who also understood the value of not exactly creating an ecosystem, but sort of trying to put together the infrastructure at the very beginning. You would see how the little he did in the past continues to inform the way in which a number of artists in Nigeria continue to make contributions beyond their practices as artists.
Africa has become a very vibrant environment for art and has been supporting its own artists and nurturing an environment where artists have been able to thrive and make big achievements. For me, I always look at the environment as an inspiration, and I use it to build on the ideas that I use to create my work. In my opinion, art by Africans should not just be limited to Afrocentric sensibilities. It should be open to and embracing of all facets of life.
Until about the Festa period, where sloshed with money, Nigeria organized the Festa and began to actually in the 70s, that was when Nigeria began to think about culture as a unifier. So that's when you had the national art festivals emerging in the 1970s alongside the National Youth Service Corps. These were things that emerged in the 1970s. And then, of course, Festac served as sort of a climax of the state, the role of the state in creating culture beyond funding institutions like the National Museum. Now, if you think about the National Museum, the first National Museum was in Jos. And it was a colonial museum, of course, and then subsequently that of Lagos were created. And so it all became part of the infrastructure. But they were infrastructure that did not necessarily focus attention on visual arts, as it were. It were more focused on culture and material culture.
Being an artist is an expensive ordeal, because you have to spend a lot of money buying materials. That's the reason why I maybe started using more found and discarded materials, because they were easy to access. And when I found them and used them, I didn't have to budget for more materials. I would just use what I find around me. There are so many resources that have been underutilized that I think that artists could derive ideas and get a palette for their work. So we just need to be creative. Get out of the box and stop thinking of art only as something that uses conventional, traditional materials, right? Begin to think about, how can I make art out of nothing? How can I make it out of using a sheet of paper and rubbing pencils against a tree, for instance, and picking up the embedded patterns on it, onto my paper to create an embossment, for instance. In that way, you begin to find ways to create fresh ideas without necessarily spending more and without necessarily having to do more jobs to find a way of sustaining yourself.
For me, I think what is important that we should begin to learn and appreciate and celebrate ideas, because that's how society evolves. That's how society reinvents itself. When we do not do that, we're stuck in the past.